The clock is ticking on human history, and somewhere in the unseen realms, ancient seals are waiting to be broken. 7-year stretch, before us like a bridge suspended over an abyss of fire and darkness. What if everything you thought you knew about the end was only the beginning of understanding? This is not just a prophecy carved in stone, but a love letter written in tears and thunder. The book of Revelation opens with a vision so vivid it burned itself into the soul of a man named John. He was exiled on a rocky island called Patmos, surrounded by endless waves that whispered of eternity. The Roman Empire had tried to silence him, but they could not silence what heaven was about to reveal. On the Lord's day, a voice like a trumpet shattered the silence and commanded him to write everything down. Behind him stood a figure whose eyes blazed like flames, whose face shone brighter than the noonday sun. John fell to the ground as though struck dead, overwhelmed by the glory standing before him in radiant power. This was Jesus, no longer the suffering servant, but the conquering king, clothed in majesty and terrible beauty. "Write what you see," the voice commanded, "for these things must soon come to pass upon the earth." And so John lifted his trembling hand and began to record the most mysterious prophecy ever given to humanity. 7 seals would be opened, 7 trumpets would sound, and 7 bowls of wrath would be poured out. But before the end, there would be 7 years that would test every soul walking on the face of the earth. These 7 years are divided into 2 halves, each one darker and more desperate than the one before it. The first 3.5 years begin with a rider on a white horse, carrying a bow without any arrows. He comes offering peace, promising solutions to every problem that has plagued the nations for generations and centuries. The world, exhausted by wars and rumors of wars, welcomes him with open arms and grateful, weary hearts. Treaties are signed beneath the ancient olive trees of Jerusalem, and for a moment, hope seems almost within reach. But peace built on lies is like a house constructed on sand, destined to collapse when the storm arrives. The second seal breaks, and a rider on a red horse thunders across the earth, carrying a great sword of violence. Peace is stripped away like a veil torn from a bride's face, revealing the horror that was hidden underneath all along. Nation rises against nation, brother turns against brother, and the blood of the innocent cries out from the ground below. Have you ever felt the world spinning out of control, like everything stable is suddenly crumbling beneath your feet? The third seal opens, and a rider on a black horse appears, holding scales that measure out famine and scarcity. A day's wages buys only enough bread to keep one person alive for a single day, and no more than that. Children cry from hunger, while the rich feast behind locked doors, and desperation becomes the currency of survival in every city. The fourth seal unleashes a pale horse whose rider is named Death, and hell follows close behind him like a shadow. 1/4 of the Earth's population falls to sword, famine, plague, and wild beasts that have lost their fear of humanity. The fifth seal reveals something even more heartbreaking than all the death and destruction that came before it. Under the altar in heaven, souls cry out for justice, asking how long before their blood is finally avenged and remembered. These are the martyrs who refused to deny their faith, even when the cost was their very lives and everything they loved. They are given white robes and told to rest a little longer, until the full number of their brothers joins them. The sixth seal breaks, and the earth itself begins to shake, with a violence that defies all understanding and explanation. The sun turns black as sackcloth, the moon becomes red as blood, and stars fall from the sky like figs in a windstorm. Mountains and islands are moved from their places, and every person on earth knows that judgment has finally arrived at their doorstep. Kings and slaves alike hide in caves, begging the rocks to fall on them and hide them from the face of the Almighty. But there is no hiding place from the one who sees every secret, every thought, every deed done in darkness or in light. Then comes a pause, a moment of mercy before the storm reaches its full and terrible fury upon the earth. An angel stands at the four corners of the world, holding back the winds of destruction for just a little while longer. 144,000 servants of God are sealed on their foreheads, marked as protected and chosen for this hour. They will walk through the fire and not be burned, through the flood and not be drowned, through death and not be overcome. What would you do if you knew you were chosen to stand firm when everything around you was falling into chaos? The seventh seal opens, and heaven falls silent for half an hour, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. 7 angels are given 7 trumpets, and when they sound, the second half of the 7 years begins in earnest and terror. This is the Great Tribulation, a time of suffering so intense that Jesus said no flesh would survive it without divine intervention. The first trumpet sounds, and hail, mixed with fire and blood, rains down, burning a third of all the earth's trees and grass. The second trumpet brings a great mountain burning with fire, cast into the sea, turning a third of the waters to blood. Ships sink, sea creatures die, and the oceans themselves seem to rebel against the very existence of life within their depths. The third trumpet falls like a blazing star named Wormwood, poisoning a third of the rivers and springs of fresh water. Many die from drinking the bitter waters, and survivors wander in search of something clean to quench their desperate, burning thirst. The fourth trumpet strikes the sun, moon, and stars, darkening a third of their light and plunging the world into deeper gloom. Day and night lose their rhythm, and people stumble through a twilight world where nothing feels certain, or safe, or familiar anymore. An eagle flies through the heavens, crying out 3 woes to those who dwell on the earth below, in their rebellion and pride. The fifth trumpet opens the bottomless pit, and smoke rises like the smoke of a great furnace, darkening the sky even further. From the smoke come locusts with the power of scorpions, commanded to torment those who do not have the seal of God. For 5 months, people seek death but cannot find it, longing to die but finding that death itself flees from their grasp. These are not natural creatures. but demonic forces unleashed to drive humanity to the brink of madness and utter despair beyond measure. The sixth trumpet releases 4 angels bound at the great river Euphrates, prepared for this very hour and day and month. They lead an army of 200 million mounted troops, whose horses breathe fire and smoke and sulfur from their mouths. A third of mankind is killed by these plagues, yet those who remain refuse to repent of their murders, sorceries, and sexual immorality. This is the mystery of the human heart. Even in the face of judgment, pride can still harden like stone against the truth. In the middle of this chaos, 2 witnesses appear in Jerusalem, prophesying for 1260 days in sackcloth and ashes. They have power to shut the sky so no rain falls, to turn water into blood, and to strike the earth with every kind of plague. When their testimony is finished, the beast that rises from the abyss makes war against them, and finally kills them both. Their bodies lie in the streets of Jerusalem for 3.5 days, while the world celebrates their death with gifts and feasting. But after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God enters them, and they stand on their feet in full view of everyone. Terror seizes those who see them, and a voice from heaven calls them up, and they ascend in a cloud, while their enemies watch in horror. Can you imagine the shock of seeing death reversed, of witnessing the impossible become real before your very eyes and trembling heart? The 7th trumpet finally sounds, and loud voices in heaven proclaim that the kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of Christ. But before the final victory, 7 balls of God's wrath must be poured out upon the earth in swift and terrible succession. The first ball brings painful sores on those who bear the mark of the beast and worship his image with devoted, deceived hearts. The second bowl turns the entire sea to blood, like that of a dead man, and every living thing in the sea dies in the spreading corruption. The third bowl strikes the rivers and springs, turning them to blood, and an angel declares this judgment is just and righteous altogether. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and now blood is what they are given to drink as their deserved reward. The fourth bowl scorches people with fierce heat from the sun, yet they curse God's name instead of repenting and giving him glory. The fifth bowl plunges the beast's kingdom into darkness, and people gnaw their tongues in agony but still refuse to turn from their evil ways. The sixth bowl dries up the great river Euphrates to prepare the way for the kings from the east to gather for battle. Demonic spirits perform signs and gather the rulers of the whole world to a place called Armageddon for the final confrontation of all history. The seventh bowl is poured into the air, and a loud voice from the throne declares with absolute authority that it is finished and done. Lightning flashes, thunder roars, and the greatest earthquake since humanity began shakes the earth with unprecedented, unstoppable force and fury. Cities collapse, islands vanish, mountains crumble, and 100-pound hailstones fall from the sky like divine artillery raining down from heaven above. Yet, even in the midst of this judgment, people curse God because the plague of hail is so terrible and beyond anything they imagined possible. Then the sky splits open like a scroll being rolled up, and every eye sees him coming on the clouds with power and glory. This is Jesus, returning not as the suffering servant, but as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, riding a white horse of victory. His robe is dipped in blood. His eyes are like flames of fire, and on his thigh is written a name that makes every knee bow. The armies of heaven follow him, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, ready to execute justice on a rebellious world below them. The beast and the kings of the earth gather their armies to make war against him, in one final act of futile, foolish defiance. But the beast is captured, along with the false prophet who performed signs on his behalf, and both are thrown alive into the lake of fire. The rest are slain by the sword that comes from the mouth of the one who sits on the white horse of final judgment. Satan himself is bound with a great chain and thrown into the abyss for 1,000 years of imprisonment and powerlessness and defeat. The 7 years of tribulation end not with humanity's triumph, but with the undeniable victory of the Lamb who was slain and rose again. Those who endured, who kept their faith through fire and flood and famine, are raised to reign with Christ for 1,000 years of peace. This is not a story meant to terrify, but to prepare, to warn, and to offer hope to all who will listen with open hearts. The final 7 years are not about God's cruelty, but about his justice, his patience, and his unwavering commitment to make all things right. He is giving humanity one last chance to turn from darkness to light, from death to life, from rebellion to surrender and redemption. The question that echoes through eternity is not whether these things will happen, but where you will stand when they finally do arrive. Will you be among those who endure to the end, or among those who choose the comfort of lies over the costly truth? The clock is still ticking, the seals are still waiting, and the choice is still yours to make before the final trumpet sounds forever.